welcome to another episode of the EMS Wizard podcast. We have another special guest.
I'm so excited to be here today, man. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, Joey. Hey, we are so glad to have you with us.
It's pretty awesome, dude.
It's really rude, though, to come on and interrupt Mark when he's talking. I mean, that's just not something that's very
used to it by now.
I can't stand it when Mark gets interrupted.
Can't stand it when Mark finishes his sentence.
Got a lot I can't stand in the like.
Oh no, we need.
I don't like all this negativity. This was supposed to be really positive.
So we've got with us tonight, Mark, because you've already failed. We've got tonight with us a special guest, not a regular recurring guest. We've got a special guest with us tonight. We've got Chief.
Mark. That would be us.
Yeah, that was a jab at you and I.
Correct.
The guests.
That's on John and I's podcast. So we've got Chief Joey Hundley of Forsyth County Emergency Services. Chief, welcome to the episode tonight. And hey, it's great to be able to have you. Known you a couple years. You've done some great stuff with us out on the coast. Did some stuff as our neighbor to the north. Great to have you in North Carolina to be able to spread and to share a little bit of your knowledge and wisdom with the group. So welcome to the podcast. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and a little bit about what you're doing, what your role is out there in Forsyth for those that maybe do not know.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Terry. It's great to see you again, brother. We have done some work out there. It's pretty awesome stuff that we've done. My name's Joey Hundley. I'm the Chief of Emergency Services for Forsyth County here in North Carolina. And I got a couple of different aspects of that. I oversee EMS for the county. And then I have the 911 center for the county, but it's kind of convoluted the way it's set up. We're a primary PSAP for the county for and dispatch all fire and EMS. But there's 3 other secondary PSAPs in the county for police. And if you're in the city of Winston-Salem answers all the 911 calls first and transfers. It's really weird how it works. And then I oversee the fire marshal's office for the county. And then we have a suppression support group that helps out the county fire departments outside of the city of Winston-Salem. So I've been here almost a year. So pretty excited.
That's pretty cool. I got some roots from Forsyth County. When I started my career, I actually worked, I won't say I worked, but I rode on an ambulance there. Was 24 hours at that time. We were the first 12-hour truck when they were transitioning over to 12 hours when Forsyth Medical Center out there went from their old ER to their new ER. Me and we had 2 partners, Scott Schroet and Larry Marshall. We were like part of the group of us that went out there, and we worked the nighttime out there. Dan Osmick, I believe, was the chief then. And then Darren Ziegler, who's the chief that preceded you, was my training officer there. And as you know, he passed on, not that long ago. Yep. And so, yeah, I'm very familiar with the antics of that. However, what you have now did not exist when I was there. And it seems like there's a hospital every 10 miles in that county, where it used to be Forsyth and Baptist, and that was about it. So,
yeah, there's been some interesting stuff. I mean, they're building like crazy now. Forsyth is building and Baptist, or I can't keep up if it's Atrium, but now Atrium is owned by somebody else bigger, and but it's Wake Forest University Baptist Hospital, and I went over there to I took the disaster medical and emergency preparedness course the other day over there, and I knew my way to the classroom until I got over there and parked, and they've erected another building in the parking lot, which was the only way I knew to get to where I was going. So they had to come get me and actually walk me through the hospital to get me to where I was going. It's ridiculous. And then, they've got a couple of small community hospitals with Kernersville Medical Center and Clemens Medical Center, and then the VA's got a hospital. And but it's interesting too. I'm having some conversations about disaster response with those folks, and I had the unfortunate opportunity in 2019 to be on a mass shooting in my last job. And, so you just start asking different questions. And man, they're like, no, we're not going to do that. I'm like, oh, yes, we are.
Lots of growth in that county, that's for
It
sure. Over the last 5 years, I know. So it's been good, very good, diverse geographical makeup there as well. Between you got K Vegas out there, Winston-Salem you already mentioned, Clemens you already mentioned, Walkertown, another one that's a fast growing area. I mean, that really blew up out there. So
yeah, I'm from Surrey County, which is just 30 minutes north of here. And so all of my time on active duty, whenever we would drive home, I've watched downtown Winston-Salem as you're driving, through what used to be Business 40/421 is now called Salem Parkway. And I mean, it's, 52 is transitioning to an interstate. I mean, it's all kinds of crazy stuff, right? But I watched downtown Winston-Salem kind of go from, Reynolds Tobacco Company back in the day to a bunch of empty warehouses that look desolate downtown. And now it's thriving again based on, the concept of innovation and the arts that are here. It's pretty impressive to see, actually.
that's a long ways away from when I used to go there and watch professional wrestling back in the day at the Lawrence
NWA, man.
That's exactly right. NWA. Woo. Yeah.
Oh yeah, brother.
Yeah.
Wrong league there. Wrong one.
But whatever. That's cool.
So, Chief, one of the things you just mentioned was you talk about innovation. And one of the things that I've just stumbled across in some of my reading was this drone program that delivering AEDs. And I just recently realized, oh, that's Forsyth County, right?
Yeah. It is Forsyth County. Duke is doing has gotten a grant from American Heart to do a project, and I guess I shouldn't go too in depth into it yet, as we're still working on all the specifics on it. But ultimately, AHA's funded a grant and Duke is one of the recipients of the grant. And we're unique in the state in that the sheriff is, I think, the only sheriff in the state that has an FAA license that he oversees. And so they have a drone as a first responder program already in place, doing police and bad guy stuff. And so we're just fortunate that we're able to jump on that and try, this drone this drone AED via drone delivery, which, if you're familiar with the EMS agenda for 2050, one of the things that it talks about in the agenda is, they do a really good job with the scenario of the sick girl and the 911 call, and the drone comes and drops the EpiPen and saves the life of the child. And so, this really is a first in the nation kind of thing. And we are very excited to be able to do it and partner with Duke and Forsyth County Sheriff's Office, and then my 911 team, coupled with, I'm not actually entirely sure from an EMS perspective how involved EMS is going to need to be. I mean, it's really targeted. It's much like a public access defibrillation, right? And so we're working on essentially the protocols and the policies to even stand up the program that will be able to go out for nationwide support whenever, assuming we can make this work for other communities to stand up a similar program. So it's pretty excited to be part of. One of the things that I said coming in the door when I got to Forsyth County was I certainly wanted folks to think out of the box, and even my boss on my interview was like, we have the ability to be a nationally recognized EMS system. I don't disagree with that. And so this was just one of those opportunities that when it came our way, I was like, yes, we need to be on top of that.
Walter, that's a long ways away from from where you came from on the farm, huh? You don't know, got drones
There
dropping
was.
AEDs.
You know, I always thought that was interesting. You know, if they do it in the UK and places like that, I always thought that was interesting. I'm glad to see that someone, and I was actually just looking it up to see if there was anything out there, and there is a little bit out there about it. But that is interesting that, you know, we're going to get to the world of, you know, not just only calling for help, that you're going to be able to get help. And, you know, I used to work in the 911 center as well and teach EMD. So that is, you know, interesting to be able to see that something like that is coming to little old North Carolina, to be able to start with that in the United States.
Yeah, that'll be another one of those things we have to work on is EMD protocols and how the telecommunicators and the dispatchers work um, to communicate. You know, I mean, it's even things like, you know, are we going to land the drone, or are we going to hover the drone and winch down an AED? I mean, those are the kinds of conversations we've had already. And I did a little research and just on AEDs, and I think I found the smallest AED weighs like 2.6 pounds. That's a total complete self-contained thing. You know, so it's very interesting. And Sweden, I think is the other country where it's happening right now. And so I'm really waiting to see if I'm going to be able to take a trip to Sweden and do, you know, a little site visit and see how that goes. But I don't know yet.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow, I never thought I'd see the tech move to where it's moved like that. But you know, over the summer, me and my wife were up in New Hampshire and got served at a Denny's by a robot. Came out to us and brought our food to us. This little, I don't know, Roomba thing came and brought us our food, and we took the trays off and put it on there. And I was like, this is a Denny's in New Hampshire. So I guess I shouldn't be too surprised to hear drones coming to bring first aid or AED stuff out to Winston-Salem.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. We did a college tour for my daughter last year up at James Madison, and they were using robots for DoorDash type delivery stuff. I was like, I mean, I watched and I was like, that's crazy.
Wow.
But that's where we are, so it's pretty cool.
Right. Terry, are you going to say anything in this episode, or are you just going to sit around and let all the big boys talk? We don't mind the children speaking every now and then. It is a holiday season.
Every time I start to go to talk, you cut me off. And that's not what a real best friend does. And
Keith never cuts me off. You're right.
That's what strengthens Walter's increasing on the list as Mrs. Sheehy wants him to go up, to bump up. Chief, I got a question for you. And Chief is not a new title to you. You retired, I say a couple of years ago, retired a couple of years ago from the Navy as a Master Chief Petty Officer. A lot of cool things, and where you were chief of the boat, squadron chief petty officer, Master Chief Petty Officer. As you made that transition, and I know that being in the military and being in EMS for you, those were kind of parallel for a while. And so as you made that transition from full-time military and part-time EMS to full-time EMS, what are some lessons that you think carried over easily from your military time, or some things that you said, well, I can't do this in an EMS agency like I could when I was chief of the boat?
Yeah, you know, one of those things that that we always used to teach from a leadership perspective in the Navy was, hey, it's easier. You want to always come into a new place, come in hard, right? Come in hard because it's easier to come in hard and then relax your style than it is to not come in easy and have to ramp up your style. And you know, I got to tell you, I don't think that's entirely true. I don't think it's worth coming in easy, but you certainly can't come in hard because it's just different. You know, the thing that the military doesn't do well for folks that are getting out of the military is teach you how to not be in the military again, and or teach you how to not be in the military, I should say, and just kind of adapt back to civilian life. And so I certainly had to get used to that. I mean, you know, folks think it's funny, but when I first retired, I went to work. I was up in Connecticut, and I went to work for a post-secondary. It was a umbrella company that had a post-secondary school that ran a paramedic program and an EMT program and a couple of other healthcare programs. And so I was the director of that, but they also had a commercial ambulance service, and they had an automotive service whose predominant responsibility was to repair the ambulances, but they repaired other vehicles too to help keep their revenues up. But like, what to wear to work? I mean, I'd put a uniform on for 26 years. And so, you go through a 30-minute class, getting out of the military that says the dress to impress, which really just teaches you how to dress to go to an interview. But then you get the job and you go to work day one and you're like, I got to figure out something to wear, right? So if you liken that to leadership, you're like, well, if I've got to figure out what to wear on day one of my job, then there's going to be a lot of things that are different in my job, especially from a leadership perspective. The other thing that I always, find interesting is that, public safety folks in general, I mean, the closest thing to the command structure organizationally in public safety is the police department, but we all call ourselves paramilitary organizations. I think folks always ask, or they want to say they're paramilitary organizations, and I ask what that means. And, folks don't really know. They're like, well, we've got a chain of command. And I'm like, yep. And, well, I mean, and that's about as far as you get, right? And so they don't truly understand what the concept of leadership really is. And I think that's the other biggest thing that I see as a challenge organizationally with really organizations outside the military, and it's just as much in public safety, right? And it's been that way in every job I've had since I've gotten out of the military, where they talk about leadership and leadership training, and folks say, well, I haven't really had any leadership training, or anything I've had has just been self stuff that I have gotten myself, because the organization doesn't invest in leadership training for us, right? And so, or then the other great thing I hear outside or in the public safety sectors is, well, yeah, we had leadership training, but it wasn't public safety leadership training, so it doesn't really count. It doesn't pertain to us. And so then I come back from the military perspective and I'm like, well, what kind of leadership training do you think does pertain to you? Because in all of my experience, leadership training is leadership training, right? You have to figure out how to apply the leadership training that you have received to the situation that you're in. And so that's the biggest thing that the military taught me from a leadership perspective, right? Is leadership training is leadership training. And we do a lot of it in the military. And the big thing out of all of that training is that you have to be able to adapt. And so, I tend to tell my folks now, I'll be talking about something and I'll just say to them, you need to choose whether you want to be rigidly flexible or flexibly rigid in this situation. Either way, it's adaptability that we need to look at in order to figure out how we're going to solve whatever problem is in front of us. And so, those are the big things. I mean, it just amazes me at the number of people that take some sort of leadership training and then go, well, that doesn't apply to my situation. I mean, the thing that you guys are doing, I've actually asked, because, Forsyth County, we've sent several folks to the Officer 1, Officer 2 courses that you guys are doing. And so, I mean, I've asked them legitimately. I'm like, tell me about the course. What did you get out of it? Tell me what was effective about it. Tell me, quite frankly, challenging the course, right? I'm challenging them to see what they are actually getting out of the course, so that I can determine if I feel like the course is
Value added.
right. And so and everybody has come away with stuff, right? So then I've asked some folks, I'm like, well, didn't you have some leadership training here, that the human resources here in Forsyth County did? Well, yeah, but it wasn't the same. I'm like, well, it was different. And they're like, well, and I'm like, that's my point. Leadership training is leadership training, right? What's different is who you get it from, right? Excuse me. And so what's different is who you get it from. And you can certainly have people that deliver leadership training in poor ways, right? And then you can have people that deliver it and you're like, that person is fantastic. I will, everything that they say or do is golden. And so, I do a lot of reading, and I've read a lot of leadership books. And honestly, there's a hodgepodge of things. I mean, Terry, I'm a John Maxwell guy. I do, consulting from a leadership perspective. I haven't dove into a lot of EMS consulting with regards to it. I really just stay more focused on leadership, and then try to bring in the challenges that an organization might be having from a leadership perspective. But I got to tell you, some of the best leadership books that I've read outside of John Maxwell's stuff and some other folks that he recommends is if you haven't read Jocko Willink's Extreme Ownership and the Dichotomy of Leadership, highly recommended, because that is military leadership, military leadership that is bridged for businesses and organizations, non-military. It's pretty good.
He's got some workbooks too, which I've recently taken a look at some of those workbooks, and I think one is Jocko's workbook, and one might not be his workbook, but those workbooks are, in terms of EMS, whether it's business, whether it's whatever, that's just another tool to help you. One of his big things is accountability, and it helps keep you accountable. And that certainly is a leadership exercise in and of itself, holding yourself accountable, being accountable to other people.
Yeah, that's actually his whole thing. And the concept of extreme ownership is being accountable. And in fact, I just sat through, I guess, Alexa Poll, EMS1 had an hour thing on mental health. They brought him in, and they have a 6-series course that Jocko's company takes you through. I just, of the books that I've read, I mean, I've read a bunch of different ones. His are the ones that most relate to me. And in fact, I've told my staff, if you want to know who I am and how I think, read these books, because that's me to a T.
So I would almost say, when we talk about leadership, whether it's books, whatever, it has to resonate with that individual and that military background. His books are going to resonate with you. There's a group of folks, Courtney Lynch, I can't remember who, some of her other business partners, Spark, and that resonates with some different people. The Patagonia people have written some things, and so that's what I would say is whatever it is that you're doing, how do you apply it, and then how does it resonate with you? Because it could be the greatest course in the world taught by the most smartest person, but if you're zoning out and you're right on FaceTime, snap booking the whole time,
snap Twitter, there you go.
It's worthless.
Yeah, it's pretty good stuff. I mean, you're not wrong on it's got to relate to you. I mean, the military leadership stuff resonates with me just because I lived that life for so long. But public safety is the next closest thing that ties to the military, just because it's service based. Ideally, it's a servant type leadership, because it's a service based organization, that we do. But I think there's so much more to it. And you're not wrong. You got to find what resonates with you. But in the end, leadership is leadership, and it's a matter of, in my opinion, it's a matter of learning leadership, always being a student of leadership. I mean, I sit and listen to, like, I'll go to a conference and this might sound a little not humble, but I'll go to a conference and sit through leadership classes. They're just basic level leadership classes that I know, frankly, I could stand up and teach without even prepping for it. But I learned something in every one of those classes because you have somebody in there that's teaching and they just have a different perspective based on whatever their story is, And so I could have heard the same leadership theory 5 times and hear it a 6th time from this person and go, wow, I never thought about that. And that's what I love about leadership, and how it's applied and being able to learn from other people all the time. And so, I say all of that to say that, if I didn't say it already, from what I understand, in talking to my staff that has been through, the EMS officer program that you guys do, I think I'd say it's pretty solid. And so, I'm looking forward to continuing to send folks, and at some point, John showing up and actually being part of the other one that you do. That's not the officer 1, the officer 2, but it's
Academy.
The academy. There you go. Yeah.
Well, so you got that military background. You're coming down from a pretty big organization out of Virginia, and you find yourself EMS, Emergency Services Director in Forsyth County. What, from your viewpoint, considering the leadership side, just your experience, that military, all of those things come in there. Talk about perspective. What when you look at it, how do you like what you see? You're at Forsyth County, local government EMS agency, and what do you see being the challenges? And tell me how you predict the future for EMS specifically in North Carolina, maybe even more specifically in Forsyth County.
Yeah, I will tell you the biggest the biggest challenge is coming in as an outsider. And so, but as much of a challenge as that is, I mean, it's good and bad. I'm coming in, I've been in right at a year in the job, and certainly because of my military background, I'm not afraid to ask questions, and I'm not afraid to ask hard questions. And I'm not afraid of rocking the boat a little bit. And so I've done that. I've rocked some boats. I've made some people mad. I've made some other people happy because, they're like, well, somebody's going to take on this issue, and we can work through it. That's hard to do, though, when you don't necessarily know anybody, and you have to, while you're asking all those hard questions, and while you find yourself rocking the boat, intentionally or not intentionally, understanding and being able to craft those relationships. I mean, that's part of relationships, right? John Maxwell will teach you that in order to effectively communicate, you have to first connect. And if you connect, you can communicate. And if you can connect and communicate, then you can influence. And so, that was probably my biggest challenge coming in the door, was just trying to navigate so many different things to try to figure out. And as you indicated, I think maybe we were talking before you started recording, right? I replaced Darren Ziegler, who died unexpectedly, and left an opening. And so, he'd been in this community his entire life, and had spent 30 some years in the EMS system in the county, not necessarily all with Forsyth County, but still in the system, and with the fire department in the county, one of the volunteer fire departments for decades. And so, I didn't have that coming in the door. I mean, I left Surrey County when I was 17, joined the Navy, you know, and frankly, wasn't ever coming back here. So, but, you know, I've seen EMS operate in North Carolina. I've seen it operate in Virginia. I've seen it operate in Connecticut. You know, I've seen it kind of operate in a couple of other places I was stationed, but I found myself teaching more than being part of the system because of the challenges that were associated with it. I think things are going, you know, there's some challenges in North Carolina at the statewide level. You know, the education component is one challenge that we're all trying to figure out how to deal with. You know, but there's so much potential here. You know, I like that. You know, I have the state medical director in my backyard. We talk all the time. You know, my medical director is pretty involved. I went from, you know, I've seen systems where medical directors are not at all involved to, you know, I've got one here. I mean, I've got a doctor and I've got 2 EMS fellows who we are influencing every day. They're going to be EMS physicians somewhere, and they will make impact. I mean, we've got, you know, a major teaching hospital in our backyard, and we have lots of partnerships in various aspects with them on things that we do. I mean, I've got my medical director is the EMS teaches at Wake Forest University. And so I've got med students doing research projects for me. I mean, it's not anywhere I ever that I would ever thought I would have any kind of access to. And so I feel like, I mean, I've already seen a couple of things that my medical director and his fellows have published that are coming from things that we're doing here in Forsyth County. And so, you know, I do hope, you know, in 4 or 5 years, we can be a leading service EMS wise in the nation. I think we have a lot of potential to do that with the things that we're doing, with the location that we are, and just, you know, the support of the teams, and frankly, the partnerships that we're crafting. I mean, just like these kinds of things here, right? Talking with you guys, you know, we see each other at conferences, we talk about things, and I just, it's very exciting. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, you mentioned a whole lot of different partners and stuff, but one thing you failed to mention is, and you can't do it without one. You can't be successful unless you have one of these. You've got a medical director. Do you have a best friend?
Well,
Don't say Terry.
I mean,
it's okay if you tell the truth and I'm your best
I'd
friend.
have to say if I had to pick one of the 4 y'all, I mean, I've known Terry the longest, and we've done some stuff together, so I'd have to go that way, man.
Okay.
Terry, your head was getting big, even in the video.
Yes.
Well, very choppy in that. I didn't hear it. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I don't even want to hear it again. But
anyway, Chief, thank you for joining us. We really enjoyed the conversation. Look forward to having more conversation with you in the future.
I appreciate you guys having me on. It's been an honor, and I certainly look forward to seeing you guys. I don't know, at the next conference in March, maybe.
Wilmington.
Yeah. So it's great to see you guys.
Thank you, sir.
Cool. Thank you very much, Chief.